Ladies and gentlemen, today is a real episode. This is not no theatrics and over the top and trying to grab your attention just because it's a podcast. Today's episode is real. It's real for me. It's real for the culture, and it's real because I'm speaking up not just for me and not just for you, but for the entire community. Because there's a lot of things that's been happening this week. We had the death of Malcolm Jamal Warner, Ozzy Osbourne, and Hulk Hogan, and we've had to see and witness what people have been trying to tell us how to think, how to feel, how to act. And I think that's been happening for way too long. So today's episode of Main Event Mindset Podcast, I'm about to tell you exactly how I think and exactly how I feel. And ain't nobody gonna tell me what I should and shouldn't do and how I should and shouldn't feel and how I should and shouldn't think. I'm gonna tell you because I'm a man, and it's gonna get right into it with the Main Event Mindset Podcast happening right now. What's up, y'all? It's your host with the most, your artist working the hardest, Mr. McKinnon. I'm always winning, and this is episode 6 of the Main Event Mindset Podcast. Today, we're doing a different type of episode. We're not talking about current events. Well, we are. We're actually going to be talking about the life and death of Hulk Hogan, his impact on the industry, all of the mess and the cesspool that social media has been over the last few days. And we're just going to unpack all of it. We're going to talk about it from the perspective of a wrestling fan, perspective on the business as best as possible, and my experience as a black wrestling fan, because that is my onus to you as the audience. I told you guys I was going to be integral with the start of this, talk about his impact or the impact of hip-hop culture in regards to wrestling, and that is black culture. That is the perspective that we're giving you today on the Main Event Mindset Podcast. We're going to get right into it. On Thursday, July 24th, Terry Bollea, but more famously known as Hulk Hogan, had passed away, and the wrestling world mourned. Hulk Hogan has done like everything that's happening right here. This championship right here is the first championship that I was introduced to. My very first wrestling event that I attended was right here in Orlando at the Amway Arena at the time. December 22nd, 2001 was my very first event. On that card, in the middle of the card, it was The Rock and RVD versus Kurt Angle and Lance Storm. And in the main event was Stone Cold Steve Austin in a handicap match against Booker T and the Big Boss Man. This title to my right is the Undisputed Championship. This is the second title that I've seen in wrestling as far as the WWE Championship, held by the greats in my favorite year of wrestling, which is 2002. This title was introduced by Triple H after he unified the Undisputed Championship after defeating Chris Jericho at WrestleMania 18. There's a reason that I'm wearing this shirt today. That championship then, this championship and the WCW Championship evolved into what this championship is. Held by Triple H, then funny enough, held by Hulk Hogan, then held by The Undertaker, then held by The Rock, then held by Brock Lesnar, who dropped it to The Big Show, who dropped it to Kurt Angle, and then back to Brock Lesnar, and then ultimately, oh my gosh, after Brock Lesnar held it at WrestleMania 19, he had the run. Him and Kurt Angle traded it back and forth, and then this championship then ended up being held by JBL, who defeated Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero defeated Brock Lesnar for this championship. I should know. Goodness gracious. Eddie Guerrero defeated Brock Lesnar for this championship. Eddie Guerrero dropped the championship to JBL, who was the longest reigning champion in SmackDown history at the time, who then retired this with John Cena. John Cena was the last person to hold this championship and turned it into the Sprinter belt. The reason I give you guys this history is because at the end of the day, the buck stops with one Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan is tied into so many different facets of these things. Hulk Hogan never held this championship right here, but he came back in 2002 and he held this championship. I'm wearing this shirt right here for the first time. This is the very first wrestling shirt that I bought. Icon versus Icon. My introduction to wrestling, the reason that I watch wrestling, is The Rock. He is he is my genesis. My genesis for many wrestling fans is Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan inspired The Rock and damn near every wrestler that came after him. Um, Hulk Hogan, again, first WrestleMania, it's not even a dispute. WrestleMania doesn't happen without Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan. WrestleMania 3 versus Andre the Giant. 93,000 fans is the kayfabe number that they put out there to show just how many people were packed into one place when he slammed Andre the Giant. My gosh, then you had WrestleMania 6 between Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior. You had my goodness, the infamous WrestleMania 9 at the Roman Coliseum where the main event was Yokozuna versus Bret Hart, and Bret Hart lost. And then Hulk Hogan was like, I'm a Hulk Hogan myself, and I'm going to be in the main event, and we're going to close out the show with me as champion. Being a wrestling fan is a wild ride, as The Rock would say. The wild, wacky, crazy world of professional wrestling, as he always likes to say. I will say that up until 2015, I had no reason to not be a Hulk Hogan fan, except for when he first came back in the NWO to WWF, when he basically tried to murder The Rock on live television, and I was just sitting there like, hey, yeah, I guess we'll, real life. Hulk Hogan came back in 2002 as a part of the NWO with Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, to inject the WWF with a lethal dose of poison. You remember that clip? I remember that clip. I remember that clip. Vince McMahon said he's going to destroy the WWF from the inside, bringing back the NWO. And Hulk Hogan, I had no memory of him really up until that point. I wasn't watching wrestling until 1999. After Rikishi ran over Stone Cold Steve Austin with the car. So again, The Rock was the man. He was the one. He was the one. So when Hulk Hogan comes back and tries to murder my favorite wrestler on TV with a semi-truck, we're trying to run into The Rock being strapped in an ambulance. I'm sitting there like, I'm looking on the news. I want to know how The Rock is doing in real life. This is 2001. Okay, 2002, forgive me. And so imagine my surprise, right? Imagine the build. Rock comes back and he goes, you talk about headlining Mania after WrestleMania. Well, Hulk Hogan, how do you feel about headlining one more WrestleMania with The Rock? The crowd goes crazy. You know what I mean? I can see these promos in my head. They live rent free here. And after that challenge, he beats The Rock down, tries to murder him. And so imagine my shock. WrestleMania 18, Toronto, Skydome, March 18, 2002. The match that people say should have headlined WrestleMania because Triple H and Chris Jericho had to main event and follow The Rock versus Hogan. That atmosphere, all of the build, everything about that match was what it was like to, if you had to try to quantify two generations in one match, it can't be replicated. They tried with The Rock and John Cena, and numbers wise, inflation wise, all of those things, those numbers were bigger. Fair, I get that. But you talk about wrestling purists, you talk about the faces of industries. John Cena is amazing. I'm not gonna sit there and get on this podcast and try to minimize John Cena while he's in the middle of his retirement tour. Not gonna do that. His run on top was longer than The Rock's. But what I'm gonna say right here is that as a kid, the wrestling kid in me, that was the biggest passing of the torch moment that ever happened in wrestling to me. And then hearing the crowd cheer for Hulk Hogan in the middle of the match, I just remember being confused because I'm like, this man just tried to murder my favorite wrestler. But that was my ignorance because I didn't realize how much impact Hulk Hogan actually had on the business. I seen the clips, but I didn't live it. When people talking about Michael Jordan and LeBron James, if you didn't live through Michael Jordan's era, you're gonna look at people like, man, you're just nostalgia driven. You're just heavy on you're nostalgia tripping right now because LeBron is the best, or whatever the case may be. These debates don't happen. These multi-generational debates happen because people haven't lived through the time. And unless you've lived through both times, it's really hard to convey how big a deal something was. You just It's just a retroactive clip to you right now. So I say all of these things because going back and looking at all of the fanfare around Hogan, yeah, I was definitely, I wasn't the eat your prayers. I wasn't the eat your vitamins and say your prayers kid. But I'm like, if The Rock can shake his hand and smile after this man tried to murder him on live TV, then I can be a Hulk Hogan fan too. You know what I mean? I can root for him, and he's a baby face. I didn't know no better. I was a child, and then I grew up and I became a man. And then you start hearing things about Hogan. When Hogan passed, a lot of the wrestling community showed a lot of outpouring for him. Of course, Vince McMahon came out of his slumber and he tweeted about Hulk Hogan. All of the things you can read his tweet. Nothing but positive things happening when it comes to that tweet because the man is gone. Stone Cold Steve Austin shared words. It's like, this man is in a whole other stratosphere. This man is, everybody said, every Michael Cole on doing live interviews, The Rock talking about how much the match meant to him, like how he met him when he was a kid, and then 17 years later, he's, basically main eventing WrestleMania with his hero and his icon and his childhood hero. So many fans, like Hulk Hogan was the guy. He was the one, man. Again, I wouldn't be doing this podcast. Wrestling wouldn't be as popular. So I'm very much aware of Hulk Hogan's contributions. And credit to Jason Solomon, also known as the Solomon Monster. He is a part of the reason why I do wrestling podcasting for many reasons. But he grew up a Hulk Hogan fan, and what he said something that I felt was important of why there'll probably never be another wrestler as big as him. And because he was the literal face of two different generations, two different boom periods when it came to wrestling. The red and yellow, Hulkamania, eat your vitamins, say your prayers, and then WCW with the NWO. The biggest heel turn of all time. Could have been John Cena, but they fumbled that bag. And that heel turn is not what it needs to be. But anyway, let's just come back to the point at hand. The biggest heel turn of all time, ushering in, WWF's biggest competitor at the time, and they almost went bankrupt. WWF and Vince McMahon almost went bankrupt going against Hulk Hogan and Ted Turner and Eric Bischoff. And like one person being two completely different characters, say your prayers and eat your vitamins, and then NWO for life and doing all of these things. So that Monday Night War period, I didn't even live fully through it because again, I came in 1999. I came in towards, the end of one of those cycles. And so I say all that because Ric Flair himself sent out a tweet talking about Hogan being one of his best friends in life, and he was shocked by the passing. Eric Bischoff was doing live his podcast because Hulk Hogan was supposed to come out with a company partnered with Eric Bischoff called Freestyle Wrestling, something or the other. I should get my facts straight, but the point is he was supposed to come out with another wrestling organization that was about freestyle wrestling, and it had people from different collegiate backgrounds and things of that nature. But they were making Hulk Hogan the commissioner. You know what I mean? To get some more eyes on it. It was the show was supposed to debut on Fox's streaming services, and Eric Bischoff was getting emotional talking about it. So you're watching all of these people like mourn their friend, mourn this icon, mourn this larger than life everything personality because of what he's contributed to their lives. Like people don't go into a particular profession without they're without a North Star. Be like, this is the guy I want to be. If you're always looking at the biggest, the best, you wanted to be like the next Hulk Hogan in terms of stardom, in terms of impact, in terms of all of those things. So I understand all of those things, and I credit and respect the contributions that Hulk Hogan has given the professional wrestling business. A lot of people eat and are able to support and provide for their families because of that. Now, with that respect given, the discourse online has been anything but professional or kind to Hulk Hogan. And I don't think that that is the fault of anyone else's but Hulk Hogan's. Hulk Hogan does have a family, and Tony Schiavone, shout out to him on AEW. He said that it's sometimes easy to forget that these people have family, and then they have people that love them. And he has a daughter, he has a son, he had a wife, and people that loved him. Jimmy Hart was on SmackDown, crying, wiping away his tears because he's been by Hogan's side for the better part of 40 years, and it's that bond is something that's real. And so, regardless about how we feel about him, there's people that love him. And so, again, I acknowledge and respect what he has meant to people and what he still means to people. Um, but there's a saying, and I should have started the podcast with this if I'm being honest. You either die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain. That is a one of the best lines ever written in cinema, full stop. It comes from Batman the Dark Knight. And Hulk Hogan lived long enough to see himself become a villain. In 2015, tapes were leaked of Hulk Hogan going in, talking to his daughter or talking about his daughter to someone, saying that he wishes that if she was dating a black guy, that and he didn't say black guy, he said nigger. I'm gonna say that on this podcast right here because that's just the truth. Let me tell you, even though he said this in 2015, and as a black fan, as a black man, period, uh, I was in a bar recently in 2025, 10 years later, and as somebody was shaking my hand, they shook my hand first. They were a little tipsy. Shook my hand first, and then they asked me, "Why are you so black?" while shaking my hand. It's an older white guy. And it was just one of those things to where it's like, in this situation, I have to choose to be a bigger person, or I have to choose to be a professional because we're in a public place, and the place where we were in was somewhere where I wanted to do business with. I can't afford to let my emotions get the best of me because I'm not where I want to be. He has the freedom to be able to ask me something like that in the middle of shaking my hand, right? As a gesture of, I'm just an innocent person. I'm just a nice guy. I'm a friend. Whatever the case may be. Nobody has to go into nobody can come into his space and ask him why he's so white. Nobody can do that. But us as a people, we constantly have to eat people talking down on us, disrespecting us, when all we trying to do is just live. That's just been, I feel like my relationship with wrestling is very much like my relationship with living in the United States of America. Because there's sections of it where it's like, I feel good, there's things that are great, and then there's a constant reminder though that it's like, know your place. Don't get out of pocket, don't get out of line. Be this person that is you. We will always remind you that you are subservient to us, and that is difficult because, you know, I created a group. Um, I created a group on Facebook called PWH. It's a private group, and it's you can't find it online like that. You could if you try hard enough, because I just said it. But I created that group because as a fan, I just wanted a safe place as a black guy to be a wrestling fan and not have to worry about racist atheists in the comment section all the time. I just wanted to be able to be a fan like everybody else. Look at these titles. This is not a, again, I give you the history of me because I want to paint a picture of, I was fan of Stone Cold Steve Austin, Triple H, Randy Orton, RVD. Oh my gosh, man. Like there's just so many people that I'm a fan of. But when I go to talk about it, I got to get reminded that I'm black and that I'm not fully welcome in this space. And then all of my favorites are characters that look like me, got to get shitted on a regular basis, you know? And then it's just like, you know, it's one of those weird things to navigate. It's like there's never a safe enough space for somebody like me to, in order to just be chill and just be a fan. And so when I wear my blackness proudly, it's not a, it's not something that it's like I never wanted to be I'm the black guy, but it's like I got to get reminded that I'm the black guy. So I just wear it because if you're constant, I don't need you to remind me. I know. I wake up with me every day. I wake up with me every day. So when I hear discourse online and when I see discourse online about a certain fan base telling me, or not just me, but telling people that look like me, telling people that are of culture, that how I should respect, how I should honor, how I should act towards this icon, this legend, this person that has paved the way for so many people in the business. I'm gonna have something to say to you because nobody tells you to acknowledge my heroes. Nobody tells you to acknowledge who I love and then have a certain level of respect for them. We try, but more often than not, y'all don't listen. And then one of my favorite comedians is Dave Chappelle, and that man is a hero to me because as a comedian, to me, he's the face of freedom because he stands in the fire when things don't look right and he calls it out, and people try to shrink him down to who he was, to who they think he should be. He don't shrink down. It's like, you can't cancel me because you didn't create me. You didn't create me. And that's how I feel. Nobody created me. You don't, just because someone has done something that you benefit from means that they have an onus on your life. Case in point, I want to pivot to a clip of Batman The Dark Knight Rises, where Bane is talking to the man, and the man is basically trying to, how can you say this without being super vulgar? The man is basically saying, because I did these things, this is how you should behave. And the man said, I'm in charge now. And then Bane said, put his hand on his neck, just like this. Do you feel in charge? Can you roll the clip?
You stay here. I'm in charge.
Do you feel in charge?
This clip for me symbolizes the idea that because you work for a corporation, because I work for, or I'm a fan of professional wrestling, that you get to indicate to me how I should think and how I should feel because you gave me these amazing memories. And I should just put my feelings to the side and tuck my feelings way down here so that you could feel good about your life, because you could feel good about, oh, everybody makes mistakes and things like that. There's mistakes and then there's lifestyles. There's a particular incident and then there's a pattern. And what I'm not going to do, and what I'm not going to expect anybody that looks like me, acts like me, anything of that nature, I'm not going to try to shrink them down to say, well, you know, just because this happened, it doesn't mean, well, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to do a damn thing. I don't have to do a damn thing. That's my PSA. I am never gonna sit here and tell somebody that because this person has done these things from a particular skill set, that they should dumb themselves down and constantly prioritize someone else's thoughts and emotions over their own. And that's something that we've done for a long time, and we're not doing that anymore. And that's why the discourse online has been so nasty. You know, this man said that he would rather his daughter date somebody that was rich, had millions of dollars. They date that type of actor. Then when his son Nick was in a car accident, and Nick's son died, this man went on record, again over a phone, and said, I'm gonna paraphrase here, basically saying, what stroke of luck for this to happen to us. I hope that we don't get reincarnated and come back as black people. That shows me that you know what's happening. You know how black people get treated, and you're like, your fear is getting reincarnated, or the worst thing that could happen is get reincarnated as a black person in order because you know life would absolutely suck. That's the worst possible thing that could happen to you. And you know why you feel that way, or you felt that way, is because you know that we get treated like shit on a regular basis, and we just have to eat it. We have to come to work with a smile on our face and pretend like we're okay, pretend like everything's fine, and we got to be so much more excellent, and you get to just be. The way that same way that we just try to be, you get to be. So when I hear this, it is definitely important to maintain, to have some level of integrity. Media right now doesn't have the level of integrity that it once did. We hear people right now of canceling. We hear about Stephen Colbert getting canceled because the current commander in chief just straight up doesn't like him, called him talentless and all these things. And Stephen Colbert said politely, "Go f yourselves." And we have all of these media outlets um, framing how we should think or speak about someone because that person has a significant level of influence and a certain level of power. And we're not going for that. I think that there's a way, like the day of, right? Someone dies the day of. I did a TikTok video and I just simply covered the fact that the man passed, and I'm going to choose to leave it there out of respect for him and his family, or for his family and his loved ones. But right in the comments, even the way I framed it, I didn't come out and say outwardly, overtly that this man's a racist and he's a this, that, and third, and all this name calling, because it wasn't necessary. There's timing for everything. Now that some time has passed, we can now get to a place where it's like, let's call things for what they are. A lot of what is wrong with media and what's wrong with the way that society is right now, or living in this place, living in the States, is that we have what's called a overseas they call it sports washing. Sports washing is where it's like, let's just throw out all of this great athletic competition, and that'll make people, because people are excited and we're generating fan interest and buzz, it'll make them forget about all the horrible shit that we've done already. That's what sports washing is. And I feel like in the States, everyone is framing and twisting a narrative in order to glorify and make all of this positivity around this thing that has some wickedly evil stuff that goes on around it. So I don't fault a Michael Cole or a anybody that came out there and then or went on local media or national TV and talked about the contributions of Hulk Hogan. They framed the word, they used the word complicated, right? Cody Rhodes got on the on SmackDown and said that complicated, and use these words that are just, they should just be called as they are: racist, bigot. But you can't do that on a national platform of TV with a multi-billion-dollar corporate organization, because they're not gonna like that. And then while this man is pumping real American beer every 2 seconds on a Netflix ad, I'm constantly reminded how much these people don't really mind racism. Racism is not that big of a deal to some people. It should just be something that's glossed over. Who cares, right? Get over it. It happened 400 years ago, right? It's really hard to get over your abuser constantly being trotted in front of your face. You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing if they went away and they didn't do it anymore, and then you could start to heal and whatnot. But nah, you're reminded all the time, especially when that person doesn't apologize. And so the complexity of being a wrestling fan or being a Hulk Hogan fan is really something to be marveled at, because I don't think that I've ever experienced a point in time where there was somebody that was so huge that died, that had such polarizing discourse online. And he did that himself. He tarnished his own legacy by being the man that he became. He lived the gimmick. We always talk about, don't work yourself into a shoot, brother. He worked himself into a shoot. This man didn't know, from what I could see, when to stop being a character and when to start being an actual man. I've heard Jason Solomon say this. I've heard multiple people say this. It's like, you don't know where Hulk Hogan stops and Terry Bollea begins. You can't tell. It's intertwined, one and the same. And that's pretty much like what the world of professional wrestling has become. And so, I'm on this podcast today because it's the biggest death in pro wrestling history. I'm never going to tell somebody to not be a fan of Hulk Hogan. And in that same breath, you can't make me be a fan of Hulk Hogan. It's not my place to tell you how you should think or feel about that. The same way it's not your place to tell me or people that look like me how to think and feel. When it comes to somebody, when you reminded that your oppressor or somebody that encourages oppressive behavior is in your space and in your life. That is not my place to tell you how to think and deal with that stuff. But like we talked about in the Dark Knight clip, this when the man tried to say, I paid you a small fortune. And he's like, does this give you power over me? No, it doesn't. You paid me for my skill set and you paid me for my contributions, but you don't own me as a human being. You don't own me as a man. You don't own me as a person. So that is where that was that guy's last scene, because he effed up. And in the movie, he was able to correct somebody talking crazy to him because they was like, I give you money, so that should be good enough, right? I gave you a job. How many times you had your job? Stone Cold Steve Austin was arguably, after Hulk Hogan, the most successful pro wrestler to ever lace up his boots. And a lot of that was him beating the crap out of Vince McMahon. Because you know why? The average person that goes to work can't light their boss up after their boss talks to them crazy and then just be like, well, you better just get to it. Dignity and respect and integrity and honor and character should be first and foremost. And when we start to pacify and trade off those characteristics for money, you lose yourself as a human being. I am never going to get on a platform and pacify my integrity from what all of my values, from me being a man, me being raised by two parents that believe in Jesus Christ, me being a man that carries myself in a sense of integrity. I'm all about, forgiveness. I'm all about, people making mistakes. I understand that. But in order to be forgiven, you forgive for yourself, not for the other person. I don't carry any hate, visceral thing in my heart towards Hulk Hogan or to anybody really. But what I will say is that I don't have to pretend to be something that I'm not, and I don't have to pretend to have this completely ironed out, perfect press release answer every single time. It's just not realistic, and I wish that the only thing that I would say that I wish was different from the discourse online is that people were not so quick to try to rush and bury or tarnish, basically shit on him while his body is still warm. Like, let people process, let people go through the range of emotions, and then also let the man have his day, honestly, because he did give, and he gave back in a way that probably nobody else will ever really be able to give in that light. However, don't tell people how to mourn. You guys, you have July 4th. I have Juneteenth. Imagine that. So, here at the Main Event Mindset Podcast, I would like to thank everybody that does listen to this. Again, my job is not to tell you everything that you want to hear all the time. I would love to do fun things and just be a fun wrestling fan all the time and talk about RVD and Eddie Guerrero and the Dudley Boys and The Undertaker and just all of those things. But I want wrestling and society to get to a place to where respect is an even street. And you give respect to get respect. You earn it. And if you see me walking down the street and forget about the podcast, forget about the titles, all of those things. As a man, and you know that we share this space called professional wrestling, as fans, treat each other with respect. Treat me with respect, and I have no issue ever giving respect back. I'll see you guys for episode 7. This episode has been sponsored by Jotnar Media and Kraken Law Group, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Again, I am your host with the most, your artist working the hardest, Mr. McKinnon. I'm always winning, and we'll be back.